Welcome, grade 11. Today we're going to be looking at slavery in West Africa. So let's begin. So we're going to start with looking at slavery in Africa, and then we're going to look at ways Africans were enslaved. So slavery in Africa. So slavery has historically been widespread in Africa. It has always been a part of its culture. It's always been accepted. Systems of servitude and slavery were common in parts of Africa in ancient times, as they were in much of the rest of the ancient world. So we saw the first major movement of African slavery or African labor for slavery in the Arab slave trade, which started around the 7th century, followed by the transatlantic slave trade, which started around the 15th century. And if you look here on this map as well, you can also see various trading routes that occurred within the continent of Africa. And so take a look at it. You see some places, some things, and it's mostly along the coast. If you take note of it, and the direction most of it is going to is to the northern and eastern part of Africa that leads you to Europe and the Middle East. So ways Africans were enslaved. So slavery in historical Africa was practiced in many different forms. Debt slavery, if you owed people some money, then you could be enslaved. The enslavement of war captives, that was a war raid, you could be captive and then you could be enslaved. Raids, which is very much so common, probably that and the war captives were the two main ways that slaves were actually captured. And you have to understand the dynamic of Africa. When we have the scramble of Africa, where the Europeans created boundaries, they created boundaries with warring tribes. And so this easily facilitated more raids or war captives because a lot of the neighboring tribes were enemies. Criminal slavery. So some examples would be adultery or theft. You could actually be enslaved because of crimes that you committed. And individuals sold themselves and or families into slavery. So sometimes people didn't have the money, some people didn't have the resources to survive, so they sold themselves into slavery. That's the end of this video on ways Africans were slaves in Africa and slavery in West Africa.